Hello hearties, it's Catherine here, and today I want to talk to you about the importance of handling rejection gracefully. So this is those times when the client comes back to you and says, thank you so much, I loved everything we talked about, but I've decided not to go ahead and work with you. And this has been prompted, as you know, I recently told you the story of Colin the accountant, so not his real name, but an accountant who missed out on my business because he missed out one very important question from the sales conversation, which I shared about in an earlier video. But that particular experience with him has also prompted me to want to talk about this other issue, which in some ways isn't strictly part of the sales conversation itself, but it's part of the sales process because it happens after the sales conversation. It might happen at the end of the conversation while you're still while you're still on the call or in the meeting. But more often than not, it might happen when the client actually comes back to you in a follow-up call or a follow-up email to let you know what their decision has been. So when a client at the end of your sales process decides that they don't want to work with you, it might actually be for all sorts of reasons. Some of those reasons are very valid, they're very true. Sometimes the clients tell you a little white lie because they don't want to tell you, it just feels more comfortable for them than telling the actual truth. And sometimes the reason somebody will choose not to work with you is because they spoke to more than one person and they've decided to work with someone else instead of you. Now, the thing is that if you're in business, you have to be okay with this, like completely okay. You have to allow that your potential client might want to speak to more than one person. Whether you're a coach or a healer or an aromatherapist or a web designer or a marketing consultant, when you think about it, it's perfectly reasonable and actually in many cases advisable, if you really think about it, for them to do their research, to speak to more than one person before deciding. And this process of speaking to more than one person actually helps them to go through a process of learning more about what they really need, finding out what's available, the different options, and it helps them to find the solution and the person that is the actual best fit for them. So we have to be okay with them doing it. And of course, it's something that we all do ourselves very often. So sometimes, no matter how good your sales conversation has been, no matter how brilliant a connection you had, or how well you did address those concerns, the client will come back to you to say that they were really impressed with you, they loved everything you talked about, but they've decided to work with somebody else instead. And I know that when that happens, I know that can really hurt. It's a real ouch moment for us in business when that happens. But here's the thing, while it hurts, it's particularly important that you handle that particular no really gracefully and graciously, especially if you find that you're not feeling all that gracious under the surface. You don't have to feel gracious about it. It's just important that you handle it in a gracious way. So, in my own recent example, I'd ended up speaking to 2 accountants as part of my process. I actually felt confident in both. I liked both. They were very different personalities, but I liked both. I believed that both of them could do the work, could do it effectively, could do it to deadline. There was nothing in it. The prices were not exactly the same, but price-wise, there wasn't really anything in it. That wouldn't have swung the decision for me. There wasn't really a huge amount in it in the end, once I'd had my concerns addressed. But I had had conversations with 2 accountants. I only needed one. I could only go ahead with one. So one of them was going to be let down. And because Colin, the accountant, had not arranged a follow-up call, which, as you know, is so crucial, and do refer to my blogs on following up if you want to learn a little bit more about how I suggest you do that. So because he'd made the mistake of not booking in a follow-up call, I ended up emailing him to let him know my decision. I was very complimentary. I explained how happy I had been with everything that he explained, but I also explained my reasons for choosing to go with somebody else, because I understand as a business owner that this is always useful to know. But I also said I'd been completely happy with everything we discussed and that I would certainly recommend him and his practice to other people in future. And you know what? I truly meant that. I wasn't just saying it. I truly meant it, because the accountant that I had chosen to go with, I chose them because I felt they were a better fit for me and my business and the stage of business that I'm at currently. So my specific needs and circumstances. What Colin offered was less of a good match for me personally. But I recognised that actually, if I was looking for an accountant to recommend perhaps one of my clients, somebody from within my community, perhaps somebody at an earlier stage of business than me, I very well may have recommended Colin. He was, let's just say, a more the more safe option, I guess, is the more safe, the more conservative option to go with. And so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I have potential clients. I've got an entire community of thousands of people. I've got over 200 in my paid community. I've got a very big business network. I'm really likely to reach a point where, you know, I want to be recommending somebody an accountant, and I would absolutely send them to Colin. However, whether he intended it or not, and it's perfectly possible that this wasn't intended, which is why I say it's important to handle this so carefully, the response I had very much felt less than gracious to me. And actually it had the effect of switching me instantly from, you know, you weren't quite right for me, but I would be more than happy to recommend you, into, I don't feel so good about you anymore. And as soon as you don't feel so good about somebody anymore, you're not so likely to recommend them. So when this next happens to you, it's really important that you, first of all, acknowledge that potential client's decision and show them that you understand the decision. It's really important that you are gracious and you make it very clear that you respect that decision. Now, sometimes saying, I respect your decision, can sound like the very opposite of respecting their decision. So a really good way of saying it instead would be, and especially if you don't agree with their choice, if you do believe they've made a mistake, then a really good way of saying it is to say that you're really pleased for them that they found a service or a provider that they're happy with. You know, it's a really nice way of graciously letting them know that you respect the fact that they've made that decision. Wish them well, and finally let them know that you are there if they need you for anything. Let them know that you're there if they need to come back to you in future. What you shouldn't do is, no matter how you're feeling inside, make sure that you don't outwardly express your disappointment in a way that could be perceived by that client as either ungracious or sour grapes. And yes, of course you're likely to be disappointed. And it's totally okay to let them know that you would have loved to have worked with them, but try not to express it in a way that could leave them feeling bad about themselves or feeling bad about you. And if that means that you need to ask somebody, a business colleague, for example, to just cast their eye over your email before you send it, then by all means do that. Sometimes we just need a second eye on things. I know I do sometimes. Also, don't be tempted to disagree with or argue with their decision. And don't make any comment, however subtle you might think it is, don't make any comment that is designed to undermine the decision that they have made. So don't tell them that they've made a mistake or point out all the things that could go wrong as a result of what they've decided. So even if you really do believe that they have made a mistake and your motivation is just that you want to help, it's highly unlikely to come out that way in this scenario, and it's much more likely to sound like sour grapes. So just let them know you respect that decision. Let them go gracefully, but let them know that you're there when they need you. Because if you handle your rejections badly, it will damage your business over the longer term. But if you handle them well, it could lead to a flow of referrals, and it could lead to that client coming back to you. So if a client walks away from you having had a really positive experience, even if they decide not to work with you themselves, it's very likely that they will refer you to others. And very often, if somebody is a real connector type with a strong network, very often the referrals that they send you could actually add up to be way more valuable over the longer term than if that one individual had chosen to work with you at that time. And also, like I said, they'll come back to you. So, if like maybe you strongly suspect that they haven't made a good choice and things aren't going to work out well, you don't need to tell them that. You let them know you're there if they need you. And if things don't work out for them with their other choice, or maybe just the next time that they're looking for a service like this, they will come straight back to you. But if you make them feel bad about themselves or uncomfortable about telling you their decision, they definitely won't be back. So I hope you found this useful today, and just bear that in mind when it comes to handling those rejections gracefully, whether it's on the phone, whether it's by email. Just, make sure that you're being gracious, that you're being loving, that you're giving the same. I guess the thing here is that while you had the sales conversation, you were loving, you were supportive, you were consultative, and you wanted the best for that client. And what's really important is that beyond the point when they say no, you continue to be loving, supportive, consultative, and wanting the best for that client. That you don't suddenly change in your sort of energy towards them because they've decided to say no to you. It's about respecting their decision and letting them go gracefully. So I hope you found this useful today. As always, please pop a note in the comments below and let me know how useful you found it. It really means a lot to me to know that you find what I put out and share with you useful. So that's it from me for today. I look forward to seeing you on the next video very soon. Lots of love. Bye bye.